Prior to Spanish occupation, the area we regard as Mexican was a vast collection of many unique cultures involving some 200 different languages. It encompassed all of present-day Mexico and most of the southwestern United States. Isolated by Spanish royal decree and dominated by Spanish rule, those cultures slowly blended together into a rich and complicated identity. Spanish colonial art's origins was conceived to display the extraordinary craftsmanship and expression indigenous artisans produced while living under Spanish influence. It features items from the private textile collection of Mark and Linda Winter, the Granada Hispanic Textile Museum, and various other private collections.
The Spanish that came over and settled the New World didn't bring their tailors with them. And so they needed, after when they wore out the textiles they were wearing, they needed to have local textiles made, and so they used indigenous labor to do that. As with most things from Mexico, and even in New Mexico, they really represent a blending of Spanish traditions and New World native traditions. And so out of those traditions developed, huge numbers of things, but they particularly affected costume. And so, particularly in the northern, what were called the haciendas, the big haciendas up there, were owned by what were referred to as Creole hacendados, and they were very, very wealthy, and they were literally feudal lords. They had these huge estates. The King Ranch, which was the biggest ranch ever in the continental U.S., was 2 to 3 million acres. The biggest hacienda in Mexico was over 17 million acres. They developed their own style of dress, and so amongst that style of dress came the saltillo serape, and what we now look at as the charro and the china. So this is a very unique and distinctive garment that developed out of this blending of, old world and new world in Mexico. There's no poncho garment in Europe. There's no European counterpart to this garment. So we see the different types. We call this a vertical mosaic with the complex field. This is a diamond grid. Spot repeat. Here's another of the diagonal grid. Here, beautiful colors in this. And so it's really wonderful the way the colors bounce back and forth off each other. And these were made to be worn in the sun, so they're color fast. These are faceless dyes. Now here we have the classic costume of the New World Hispanic. This is a California outfit. This is basically Zorro. This is about 1880 or so. And it's all gold embroidered. It's wrapped gold thread. It has a cotton or linen base, and they wrap it with gold, and then they embroidered. China goes way back in Mexican history. Her name was Mira. There's a few different stories, but they think she was an Indian princess that was stolen and brought to the New World, and she ended up getting her freedom, and she loved the indigenous people in Mexico, and she kind of developed her own style of dress, and so the Mexicans emulate her as a folk hero. We see the china has the Mexican symbol done in beadwork on the front, and then an Aztec symbol sequined onto the skirt. And then the man's outfit is leather, hand-cut leather applique onto real fine wool. And he's real decorated with silver buttons down the legs and silver buttons on the front and the collar and everything. And then he has this is about an 1880s or so serape he's wearing, similar to the one over there. Beautiful hand-woven sombrero. People were taxed by the percentage of Indian blood they were relative to Spanish blood. So everybody wanted to be pure Spanish blood, but nobody was. The highest level of citizenry in the New World were called peninsulars, and they were born on the Iberian Peninsula in Spain. They were the only people allowed to hold the highest office in church, state, business, anything. The next group were called Creoles, and Creoles were pure Spanish blood, mother and father, but the offspring were born in the New World, and the successive Spanish kings never trusted people that were born in the New World. So it was a common practice, if you became pregnant in Mexico, you would sail back to Spain to have your child so he wouldn't be considered a second-class citizen. So these are things people don't realize. Mexico was a very complicated place, much more so. One thing the Creoles could do is own land. That's why they became such wealthy landowners. Okay, so I use that term Mexican, but literally it's a mixture of the two cultures. And it goes deep. It goes through all the arts, it goes through all the religious practice, it goes through everything, that Mexican culture.
Vamos a proceder también si te interesa. Muchas gracias.